We're joined post-election by Shalli Kumar, the founder of the Republican Hindu Coalition, who's also part of the Republican National Committee as their leader when it comes to Hindu affairs. And Shalli, you got to spend time on another historic night for the Republican Party, for yourself as someone that's been a big advocate for President-elect Trump, who is now going to enter a second term as president. It did seem unlikely after losing in 2020, but President Trump, with a stunning victory and a dominant victory, was not just by chance. He not just carried swing states around the country, but he made an impact in very blue states, states like New Jersey and New York, among others. So, Shalli, just take us through this scenario. I mean, you have been there lock and step with President Trump going back almost a decade. We were there at the nadir of that initial campaign to the pinnacle of winning that race against Hillary Clinton. You were there when he came up short in 2020. What was this whole experience like for you?
Oh, this one actually was quite a bit like 2016. In fact, the timing is about the same. That year, it was about 1:45 a.m. where the president or president-elect came out and gave his victory speech. And and you know, it was the electoral college vote number was 312. It looks like it's going to be 312 again, and it was 1:40 a.m. So history, in a way, is repeating itself. So excitement was different. President Trump has learned how to dance a little bit. So he's got the entire crowd on YMCA. So everybody's swinging to YMCA. The whole floor looked like a dance floor rather than a political rally.
I mean, there's definitely a change in tone here in what will be a second term for the president-elect. You know, the first time he ran against Hillary Clinton, he got a lot of scrutiny for using terms like carnage. I think American carnage was the phrase. You know, when he lost in 2020, you know, President Biden came in with a Democratic base that was very anti-Trump, and they had a broad victory, but a tight victory in these swing states. I mean, certainly the margin of victory was not significant in these swing states. So what do you think the messaging ultimately was that put the president over the hump? Because, you know, Vice President Harris had the incumbency advantage. I mean, being part of the Biden-Harris administration, spent more than $1 billion. And if you look at all the other PAC money, I'm sure it may have gone in excess of maybe as much as $10 billion all told between both parties. So give me a sense of what you think actually resonated with the American people.
Well, you see, if you look at the entire history, from the moment he came down the escalator in the New York, his Trump Tower, he was different than anybody else. He was not a normal politician. So the whole political class, including Republicans, not just the Democrats, they didn't really want to have him come to Washington. They're opposed to him. So many people just opposed to him. And you know, where does this guy come from? Well, what is he? What the policies he's talking about? The common sense policies. You know, he says, "Oh, immigration is a problem. He's going to build a wall." Okay, it made a lot of sense to a lot of people, and but it was not liked by the political class. His messaging for the last, let's say, 9 years has stayed the same. It's all the same. The mega movement is really not just a Republican movement. It's his own movement, which is a combination of conservatives, Republicans, as well as, let's call now, Trump Democrats. So it made a huge impact in you know, all the exit polling, the numbers among the African American men, African American Latinos, in people in Detroit, in Michigan, who did not want to go to this electric vehicles. And so he addressed, and very artfully, that he is for the average Joe, average common man. The whole thing, Kamala's campaign kept on making mistakes on this McDonald's, challenging him on McDonald's. Well, that played really well because the TV personality. And then garbage, man. So YMCA song itself, that's for working class, regular people. So that's what is resonated, and normal thinking, like Karl Rove type thinking, was not really applicable.
So, Shalli, tell me about the impact on the Hindu American community. Certainly, I've seen a big shift since 2016. The data says that Hillary Clinton received 78% of Indian Americans at that time, but certainly support from the community slipped in 2020 for President Biden. And when President Biden, at the time that he decided to step out of this race, he had only received 46% of the Indian American community willing to support a second term. Now, Kamala Harris, based on AAPI data figures, moved that back up to 69%, so a 23-point shift, less than Hillary Clinton, but certainly a less than where, in that same ballpark where Biden was in 2020. So what has happened to the Hindu American community? And speak about it in terms of Hindu American men and women, because I have seen personally, just anecdotally, a big shift in recent years.
See, first of all, you can't just go by API or Pew voting, okay, or polling. So when we in 2018, we had accomplished what we needed to do, we did not take the polling of all the states, because we were given charge of, at that point, just 3 states. That was Florida, North Carolina, and Ohio. And we authorized a very professional poll, and that indicated to us that even previous elections, 2 elections, 2008 and 2012, whereas Hindu and Indian Americans had voted, only 16% of them voted for Republican candidates, but we were able to turn it around to 65%, from 16% to 65% for President Trump at that time. One of the big factors was his recognition of the Hindus. He loudly pronounced, "We love Hindus, we love Modi." So that had an impact. Now, in general, what I would say is, because we have data from RNC on every single Hindu and Indian American voter in the country, district-wise. We have their name and contact information and everything. We also have software that is able to look at 4 or 5 different parameters. They go by ethnicity, by race, by religion. They came to the United States, when they became citizen, age, name, and from these variables, we figured out who are Hindu Americans, because otherwise there is no identification as Hindu Americans. So we have all that data. But the interesting part of this is 85% of Hindu and Indian Americans describe themselves as no party, independent. So that means we are the biggest independent bloc in the country. Who is going to decide which party or which person to vote for president based on the policies of the people, policies of the candidate? So that's where happens in 2016. In 2020, there was, we were silent. We didn't really bring it out. And fortunately, this go around, even in the last 5 days, starting with President Trump's famous tweet of Diwali, where he very clearly identified the fact, and no other leader in the world has made the statement like that, that Hindus are getting persecuted, whether it's in Bangladesh, whether it's they're getting attacked in Canada. And so when we, after that, launch a campaign, a pretty big campaign, to reach out to the community. In one case, I mean, we did it obviously with you as well, but we had 30 commercials running on 30 channels. That means the 900 ad spots, 60-second, running for 4 days. So to get the message out, otherwise there was just only one-sided message. Once you engage our community, who's independent-minded, and bring out the facts to them, like, okay, who was Kamala's father? Marxist. Who was Kamala's mother? Very, let's say, adventurous woman who came out at the age she did, but she was, from those days, she was a communist sympathizer. She was a socialist. So to have people understand that that's what the background she grew in. And what do you expect from a person, a child raised with parents, teaching them those particular economic policies? So when people get to know the facts, I bet you let's say 6.2 million Hindu American voters, probably 90% of them did not know their parents' background. Same way, 90% of the people would not know that she was dead set against Prime Minister Modi and Bharat in India on repeal of Article 370 and 35. So it's the facts which you bring out. I mean, if you tell those same people, oh, that's what she did. Whereas in India itself, there was almost a universal acceptance of the repeal of 370 and 35A, but Americans, Indian Americans, particularly younger people born and raised in the United States, who are not that much connected to Bharat, they don't know. They don't even know the issue. So I actually challenged in one of my conversations with a TV channel, why don't we have Kamala watch Kashmir Files and then make a statement that is the Muslim minority in Kashmir is being persecuted. When she comes to know, I don't think she even knows Kashmiri Pandits. I don't think she knows the term Kashmiri Pandit. I don't think she has any idea what happened on the night of the 1990. Okay, so it's education. And when you educate our people, I've seen it time and time again, independent-minded, but when you educate, Google is my biggest weapon. Smartphone is my biggest weapon. When I used to go in 2016 in all these town halls, you're going into a town hall, you ask how many people prefer Hillary Clinton, how many for Trump? It will be 85%, 90% for Hillary. Give me 2 hours with them and smartphone, and you bring out the facts. The tables turn. That's exactly what we were able to do this time around. I believe that in the 3 states, the margin of victory for, let's say, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan is about 450,000 votes. Last minute campaign of Hindu Americans, even a 4-day, 5-day campaign, contributed substantially. Over 200,000 votes got switched. And that's how President Trump got elected.
So, Shalli, take me through the strategy this time out. Obviously, in 2016, President Trump was a first-time candidate. The second time around, there were a lot of folks kind of frustrated with his approach on COVID. The economy was in free fall, also in light of the pandemic, and so he paid the price politically. But in 2024, he had a different approach. He's brought in some fresh faces. I mean, certainly he didn't necessarily go back to the well and work with a Nikki Haley. I think he chose not to go with Haley as a VP pick, but going with JD Vance. And of course, Vance is married to Usha Vance, who is, I think, a very popular Indian American attorney. Vivek Ramaswamy has come onto the scene in the last year, spending a lot of his own personal capital to get well known, first of all, when running for president, but second of all, now as a strong advocate. So just take me through the last few months of how Trump was able to rack up, so many votes. When in 2020, many people thought his political career was over.
You see, this time around, policy-wise, issues-wise, it was a lot simpler. You could talk abstract policies, but when you can see the actions and the policies that affect your pocketbook, you can see the prices of gas has doubled. You can see groceries have gone up. You see the houses are becoming unaffordable. The interest rates have gone so high. And you see also at the same time, you see 200,000. The number is unfathomable. 200,000 illegals are going to cross the border and come over to the United States. That entitles them, because we are that kind of society. We don't want to have anybody starve. We don't want to have anybody not have health care. They're going to get practically all the benefits for all these illegals who have entered the country, and a taxpayer having to pay for this. So the issues were way strong. Joe Biden and Kamala, they were really very weak on the issues. In fact, CNN poll in Pennsylvania was the number one topic was 35% was economy. They weren't expecting that. They were expecting maybe 22%, 23% on this. And the second was reproductive rights. One issue which favored Kamala for her election for votes was, and in the Hindu American community as well, is the issue of the reproductive rights for women, abortion issue. And so that resonates, but it was not an overpowering issue. The biggest issue was the economy. Most of the country, like something like almost 70% of the country, believe they're going in the wrong direction. So that's time for change. And people already had, not just Hindu and Indian Americans, the rest of the American population itself had experience with what their economic status was in 4 years prior to the COVID, and at least the 3 years when I call President, and you actually heard me say that in 2022, that is, I call President Trump Reagan on steroids. So his policies were just phenomenal. Very low inflation, growth rates were phenomenal, number of jobs created was phenomenal. And we actually look forward to this time doing much better, because a lot of his problems in the 3 years, despite a significant progress, was a deep state. President Trump, first time in Washington, D.C., had to fight deep state. Agency heads everywhere. They go against their policy. State Department. State Department is the biggest problem for President Trump, because they are entrenched in the policies, what they have been taught, what they know for the last, 50 years, 60 years. And President Trump thinks differently. For example, why shouldn't NATO countries, even including Japan, including not just Japan and NATO, but Germany and UK and all these countries, why should they not pay their fair share? And instead, we Americans have to pay for their protection. What kind of a logic is that? Makes sense to President Trump, but does not make sense to a lot of, let's say, traditional politicians, whether it's Democrat or Republican. So, he just brought in a different type of thinking.
So, Shalli, if you are Vice President Harris, reflecting upon this very sudden, abrupt end likely to her political career, it's hard for us to, imagine that she's going to get another opportunity like this in 4 years from now. What can you say if you were a campaign advisor to the vice president who is Indian American, who is Black, who had so much going for her infrastructure-wise, financially, momentum, obviously a huge gender gap. You had women supporting her, young people, celebrity endorsements. Where did she go wrong? And specifically, and also target your comments about reaching Indian Americans and Hindu Americans, because I did not see a rubber stamp of support for the vice president, even though her mom is Indian, and she did make overtures, throwing a Diwali party at her house. President Biden had one last week at the White House. She has done overtures to groups like Indian American Impact. Maybe she's not full-throated, but she does acknowledge her heritage to some degree. Where do you think there was that slip between the cup and the lip?
See, these are all emotional elements. That's something that will touch your heart. But in terms of what will touch your brain, what your mind says, you have heard the phrase that when you are 20-year-old, if you're not a Democrat, something's wrong with you. But when you are 40 and you're not a Republican, something wrong with you. So that phrase applies up here. So she could touch some hearts, but for our people particularly, and 1 out of 10 being in business, it's pretty obvious that she is like a chameleon. 1 minute fracking, 1 minute no fracking, keep on changing your position. Then in terms of Medicare for all, free lunch essentially, that comes from her Marxist philosophy and upbringing. So, and then now, later on, now she wants to, when people hear, she wants to give a credit, a $25,000 or $50,000 credit for startup of new business, $25,000 for loan. Oh no! All of a sudden she's becoming, let's say, more capitalist. Everybody looks at it with a very skeptical eye, and we were able to point out that this thing will, whatever policies she has come up with at the last minute, they do not apply to Hindu and Indian American families. They just don't apply. Devil is in the detail. When you actually go and look at it, it doesn't apply. And even for the people it will apply to, actually, I did not really emphasize that much. One of the policies of this $50,000 for a startup business, it was tried, and her own colleagues in Congress did not pass it because it's kind of an outrageous. It's not a practical, viable solution. So she was just trying to say things and come up with policies that will get her elected. And it was pretty obvious. That's where she went wrong, okay? If you want to be leftist, then be like Bernie Sanders. Declare yourself to be ACO. Be Bernie Sanders. Just stick to that. Say over there, hey, I'm a socialist. I want it to be a socialist. I want a socialist country. Right? Started just like President Trump has started mega movement. Let her start a socialist movement. But keep on changing your position. That is the problem. And you are correct. Her political career, by doing this chameleon acts, is over. We have a lot brighter people from the Hindu and Indian American community. I mean, you know, I didn't see eye to eye this time around with Nikki Haley. As you know, she's my distant relative, and I was responsible for bringing her out in 2010. So she's made a ton of progress. She's a brilliant person. Her mind is works brilliantly. This time around, I was telling her, hey, it's the wrong timing. Wait another 40 years. But she wanted to go her own way. But there are a lot of people like Vivek Ramaswamy. He'll have to mature. He's right now not there yet. He should run for Congress. He should run for Senate, and not just jump to a top level without having any experience. Run some political campaigns, and so he'll get there somewhere. But obviously, we have talent. Hindu Americans or Hindus across the world have talent. Look at Rishi Sunak. And so we have talent everywhere. There's no question. The Hindu community has merit. And I end this conversation with President Trump wants people with merit. He doesn't care what the color of your skin is, what race you are, what faith you are. He primarily cares for merit, talent. So, and that's what made him in.
I want to point out a tweet, because there's all these folks that are pontificating about this Trump victory. And this one is of interest and intriguing to me, just because I see these conversations in private, given that I live in California and I've seen California transform. Certainly my hometown of San Francisco is not the same place that it was when I was growing up. And those are just facts. But this is Richie Torres, who's been under a lot of scrutiny in New York State. He's a Democrat, but I think portrays himself as more of a centrist. But he had some very heavy criticism of what he calls the far left. And let me read it to you, and I'd love to get your reaction, because this is, I think, a debate the Democratic Party, which is this umbrella party, this big tent party, I think now has to contend with, because we've had people like the Squad, like Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Bernie Sanders and people of this ilk who think the party needs to be more to the left. Pramila Jayapal, another example of people in political leadership in the Democratic Party who think, hey, the Democratic Party's been kowtowing too much to people like Joe Manchin, the senator from West Virginia, who will be stepping down shortly. But they don't want centrist Democrats. They want people that are considered progressives. Richie Torres writes in this tweet, Donald Trump has no greater friend than the far left, and I'm quoting him here, which has managed to alienate historic numbers of Latinos, Blacks, Asians, and Jews from the Democratic Party with absurdities like defund the police or from the river to the sea or Latinx. Do you have thoughts on this? Because I do hear these dialogues amongst, again, middle-aged, centrist people, folks that were voting for Democrats as recently as 2016, people that were Bernie Sanders supporters, who indeed voted for President Trump in this cycle.
No, that the Democratic Party has moved way too much to the left. There's no question about it. And the positions they have taken, I mean, they don't belong here. From today's standard, President Bill Clinton will be called a Republican. President John Kennedy will be called a Republican, because that's how far the party has moved to the left. And I don't really even like the term progressive. It's not progressive, it's regressive. the policies, what they're talking about. I don't know a whole lot about Pramila Jayapal. Does she really know the history of India? Is GDP growth from 1947 to 1991 under a socialist structure, which she wants to have United States adopt? Does she really even know this? That this will put United States into the period of India of 1947 to 1991. I remember very clearly, before I came to the United States or 1969, but even in 70s, it used to take a bribe, an approach from a minister to get just a telephone line, and it used to take more than a year. That's what a progressive or regressive policy of Pramila Jayapal does. So if you can't learn from history, what are you going to learn?
Shalli, take us through what a second term will be like for the Trump administration. Now he's got Elon Musk, a prolific entrepreneur who went all in, investing not just financially but physically in a state like Pennsylvania. You have all of these players that have come to the front in Silicon Valley who demonstrated support for President Trump. I mean, this is stuff that was unprecedented. 10 years ago, we did not see vocal support in California to this degree. So what do you expect him to tackle first? I mean, we typically talk about the first 100 days of a president's agenda. He's got a lot of folks on his side to try to get things done here with 4 years to play with. He's not going to get another opportunity. What do you expect him to accomplish first?
Okay, first is energy independence. Leases, oil leases, okay, fracking, pipeline, get all that going, energy side. Second, impose tariffs on China. Maybe not all over the world, but China. China is the biggest enemy. So, and that will bring a lot of manufacturing back to the United States. Okay, and partner with India, push forward at the same time free trade agreement with India. So these are some of the things which will affect the pocketbooks. I don't understand when some economists say that tariffs will be inflationary. Nope, tariffs will not be inflationary. They will just bring the manufacturing jobs back to the United States because the money comes into taxpayers, consumers' pocket. I mean, not that I'm advocating this policy, but you could take that money and give it back to the consumers. So all we are doing is taking money from China, decreasing their manufacturing, and giving it to our people, bringing the wealth back to the United States. So that's what's going to happen on the domestic front. On the foreign front, I've said that before even President Trump takes oath, your war between Russia and Ukraine will be over. So all the lives lost, money spent, destruction happening in the world, that will not take place. And it's quite likely that even ceasefire will take place in Middle East and in Gaza and West Bank and Hezbollah, because they don't know what Trump can do. They'll be all afraid of Trump.
And as for the U.S.-India relationship, obviously we saw an unbelievable scene in Houston with the Howdy Modi rally. I think it was referenced during the most recent Modi event in Long Island that we probably won't see something like that quite again. I think neither politician maybe wants to put themselves in that position, but they had 50,000 people in Houston. President Trump went to India with 100,000 people in the fold during an India visit. What do you expect here for U.S.-India? Obviously, President Biden, it was a huge part of his administration going to the G20 in New Delhi. I happen to be part of that delegation of White House press folks going there. and he had a state dinner for the prime minister. So it seemed like the Democrats were carrying on this policy that's been built over many administrations now. What do you think President Trump will do in a second term, working with Prime Minister Modi?
Well, first I said the policy-wise, there's very serious policies confronting China that needs to take place, and there's one big part of it is bilateral free trade agreement. So that's what should be pushed, and then of course the military alliance that should be pushed. He's going to push that, and President Trump says to me all the time that you were there at the 2022 Diwali party, that if somebody could collect a crowd, he likes large crowds, large rallies, is Shalli Kumar in the Hindu and Indian American community. So I like that fact that we could have large rallies, but what I count more on and push a lot more is on policies, not just symbolism. The Howdy Modi and the campaign rallies I hold, this is symbolism, but they have to be backed by real action, real policies, and that's what I'm going to encourage, and that's what is going to happen between U.S. and Bharat.
And what kind of role would you play? Obviously, almost a decade ago, you were just getting this coalition off the ground. I've seen it grow. I've seen your influence grow as well. And of course, spending time with the president at a time when, he was having challenges in the 2016 campaign, spending time with him, in between administrations now, spending time in Bedminster when I had a chance to do this interview with you and the president in 2022. And of course, this Diwali event that you're referencing in Mar-a-Lago. What kind of role do you play now? I mean, Trump has been your guy. He's getting a second term. Are you going to ride off into the sunset, or do you have more on the agenda for the Republican Hindu coalition?
For the Republican Hindu coalition, that's definitely, it'll be there pushing for all these policies which we talked about. We have a very strong 182 members of the executive committee that are going to be pushing for the same thing. I have a call from all these people, hey, let's make a plan, one of the biggest things which I want to do from a long-term, 100-year, let's say, looking further out decades, that's this Hindu Holocaust Memorial, but we are kind of renaming it because the Jewish folks don't like it. So we're going to call it Hindu Genocide Museum. Hindu Genocide Museum. I'm big on that. So we want to push that. So, my project is, I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. So if the president asks me to do something, I will consider it. But at this point in time, my most favorite, let's say, projects are, number one, the free trade agreement between United States and India. Number two is bringing manufacturing back to United States, or move it to India, make India stronger in manufacturing. It's a powerhouse in software, but in the hardware it's not. And number three is the Hindu Genocide Museum. Kind of I laid out my priorities.
Do you think have you had conversations with the president about this, and would there be land set aside in say Washington D.C. or an area along in that area for such a venue like a genocide museum?
Yeah. So as far as the Hindu Genocide Museum is concerned, we've been working on it. We have actually made a selection on the venue, the place in Washington D.C. But there is a lot of let's say regulation that comes with projects like that. So we hope the President Trump's commitment to this will carry it through, and all the certificates and licenses and all that will get passed fairly quickly.
And I know you were heavily involved in the 2016 transition team, spending a lot of time between November and January. It seems the president's team is much more well heeled, well organized. They have folks like Robert Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard already on board as part of this transition process. Will you have a role to play, and what kind of role will Indian Americans and Hindu Americans play as the second administration gets going?
I'm sure I'll have some role to play, but I myself have not really figured out how much time I want to spend in the administration itself. So, I need to bring up Vikram, maybe I need to bring up newer people, younger people, and other leaders of the Republican Hindu coalition forward to take on these tasks.
Well, Shalli, it's always wonderful to catch up with you, get your perspective on what maybe not as shocking as 2016, because all the data, all the polls said that Hillary Clinton was going to win that race. Though I think, based on interviews that I had done in private and even in public with many Indian Americans, I did see a lot of support for quiet support for President Trump during that campaign. But certainly in 2024. There was much more vocal support for President Trump in the Indian American community, and I hope we get some concrete data. And hopefully we can work together on deciphering how this community voted, especially in the swing districts and these precincts. I think it'll be very important to find out for both parties what they need to do to tailor messaging for the next cycle.
You're absolutely right. Actually, I've already thought about it. We are going to sanction a poll, just like we did in 2016. I mean, actually, in 2017, the poll was conducted in February of 2017. So we are lining up the same people and probably the same ZTV who is going to conduct the poll. So, but it's not finalized yet. But we certainly want to do the polling to make us understand what are the issues, how we could do better.
That's great. Well, hopefully we're involved in that process too. We'd love to be able to showcase polling information. We certainly have a beat on what's going on with the community nationally, especially as our footprint grows in many states around the country, including all of the swing states. Shalli Kumar, really appreciate your time. I appreciate you stepping aside as you are en route to another destination after a victorious night in West Palm Beach. Thank you for your time as always.
But this time I will say, Ravi, last night was much more exciting than the 2016 night. It was definitely more exciting because the media had laid it out that there's no chance, at least that it will not be over for 2-3 weeks. Everybody was talking about the dates. What was that? December 10th. Would we have a result by December 10th? Would we have by January date and all that? So it was very exciting to see against all these odds. So my prophecy come true, and the election declared at roughly 1:45 a.m.
I got a message from a friend of mine this morning who said that we were the first network to declare that President Trump was likely to win, and we did that at 6:10 p.m. Pacific time, 9:10 p.m. Eastern.
I got a lot more confident at about 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where people were saying, I mean, what are you seeing? I'm saying this thing is not going to go next day, 2 other days, or all they're talking about is December 10th and all that is not going to go. It's going to be declared this night itself, because you could see what was happening in exit polling. You could see what was happening in other races, Senate races, House races. Trend was overwhelming. So that's why we were able to call it.
Shalli Kumar from the Republican Hindu Coalition, thank you so much once again.
All right. Take care.